Well, this is going to be different, and certainly different for me. I don't have a whole lot of experience working on Macs, so you seasoned Mac people may want to prepare your faces for palming. We're going to be tearing into these lovely iMac G4s here. I'm betting these pretty exteriors make for some pretty interesting service challenges. Well, let's tear into these and find out. Yeah, these machines are just absolute works of art, in both form and function. So you get 90 degrees of rotation on the display, in both directions. You can also adjust the display height. You also get display angle adjustment. And check this out. It maintains the display angle no matter what height you're at. Mind equals blown. So there must be some kind of linkage inside here that connects those two ends. It's also just perfectly balanced. And the bearings inside here are just silky smooth. They're just perfect. There's no slop or play in anything. That's pretty remarkable for a 20-year-old mechanism. And hidden behind this door we have the optical drive. And I'm guessing that's a serial number or something? I'm not sure. But even the tolerances on this little door are pretty remarkable. Like it's almost imperceptibly flush. I could barely even get my fingernail under here to open it. You gotta kinda like shove it to the side. Yeah, the attention to detail on this thing is really remarkable. And here's the back of the machine. Gonna try my best to get this round thing on camera. We have our Kensington lock port here. Got a regular old headphone jack. And this port is actually a proprietary Apple port. It's for connecting Apple's Pro speakers. It's actually a 2.5mm jack that I presume also provides power. As far as I know, that doesn't work with anything other than Apple's Pro speakers. But I'm sure some aftermarket manufacturer found a way. We've got two Firewire ports here. The Thunderbolt of the turn of the millennium. And we've got our RJ45 NIC here. Power, of course. The all-important dial-up modem. 3 USB ports. A connection for the external display. We also have the power button hidden away back here. Because of course it is. This is a groundbreaking Apple design. We can't have something like a nasty power button cluttering up the front. Okay, now I have to figure out how to get into this thing. This could be quite the challenge for my little configuration here. I know I'm going to have to lay it on its face. There's just no other way. So let's just go ahead and move this to the side. Now we'll put down a nice fluffy towel. Wouldn't want this thing getting scratched now. Now let's just lay this thing down. Okay, that should do. And hey, we got some specs printed on the bottom here. This thing's rocking a 700 MHz CPU, 256 megs of RAM, and 40 hard drives. Wow, that's impressive. I can't believe they can fit all those hard drives in this little thing. Yes, I'm just kidding. They mean 40 gigabytes. And there's our only way in. Looks like removing those 4 screws gets rid of that plate. Oh, and they're captive screws too. Now that is a nice touch. They didn't have to, but they did. They're also spring-loaded so they get out of the way of the threads. Okay, all of those are loose, so... wonder if this thing rotates or something. Oh no, it comes right off. And this plate has a little rubber bumper on the bottom. I'm guessing that's for holding against this peripheral card expansion thing. I believe you can put an airport card there to give it Wi-Fi. And I'm sure you can put other things in there too. Okay, that is one weird looking SODIMM module. They've potted over all of the chips, and I'm guessing this is just a memory expansion, because I can't imagine this thing having only a single stick of RAM. Let's go ahead and pull that out of there. And yeah, the other side is potted too. I have never seen anything like that. At least not on a memory stick. That is so strange. And it appears they're getting less welcoming the deeper we go. Those nice captive spring-loaded Phillips head screws have given way to Torx screws. But that's not going to keep me out. A T15 Torx driver fits right in. And all these screws are really variable in their tightness. I have a feeling someone's been here before. Okay, now... how do we get this out? Okay, looks like the entire bottom base comes off. Somehow. There we go. Looks like we had a fixed-in-place connector here. Well, kind of fixed in place. Sort of floating. I guess that gives it some wiggle room to center itself. I'm assuming that's for all the bits and bobs, the display and the fan and whatnot. That connects to the motherboard on that port there. And this thing has a full-size DIMM module. I have never in my life seen a full-size DIMM module used in conjunction with a SODIMM module. Wow, this thing is alien. And it looks like we have one of those notoriously leaky PRAM batteries in there. So let's get this base detached. And I'm guessing this is our display connector. I gotta figure out how to get that thing off of there. Looks like this is, okay, that's just a cover. Now it looks like we just pull this out. Yeah, there we go. But it's not obvious at all how to remove this AC input. It looks like this filter module attaches underneath the board. So surely there's an inline connector. Aha, indeed there is. Now I'll just torx out that ground lug. Wow, these are some crazy long screws. Look at that thing. They wanted to make sure this thing was grounded. Okay, let's check out that RAM. Nothing on this side. And there's some info. Got a 256 meg stick of PC-133, made by Hynix. Okay, let's see if that battery leaked. No, I think we're okay. But let's go ahead and get that thing out of there. Okay, so this is a lithium battery, so it never really posed any danger to the board. And amazingly, that battery still has a full charge. So it might be newer than I thought. And that's good because I don't think these machines will boot without a PRAM battery. And I definitely don't have anything to replace it with on hand. This battery might have saved the video. Okay, let's get this dial-up modem off of here. Boy, there is no way to grab that connector. There we go. Well, that put my fingernails to the test. And these are T9 Torx screws. Now, I guess we just lift off. Yep, pretty straightforward. And the modem has a Conexant chipset. I wonder if that's just PCI or ISA in a different form factor. I'm gonna venture a guess that even Apple wasn't willing to reinvent the wheel that much to make this thing compact. Aha! Apple was using Intel chips in the PowerPC era. Hehehehe. Okay, let's get this motherboard completely out. There's just some T15 Torx screws left. Okay, that's all of them. Okay, maybe not. Is that plastic thing a screw? I guess it has to be. It has a Phillips head. Yeah, indeed it is. Okay, now it should come out. Okay, we're hanging up on this modem wire. Okay, something's holding up the works near these USB ports, and I'm not exactly sure what. I guess I need to remove that RJ11 jack for the modem. And I just barely had this tool on hand. These are T6 screws. Those are tiny. Okay, looks like that's ready to come out. And finally, the motherboard is free. And here's the bottom of the motherboard. I see we're using an NVIDIA GeForce 2 MX for graphics. And you know, I was expecting a heatsink or something down here, but this thing has a rather interesting approach to cooling. It's actually using its internal aluminum structure as a heatsink. See, the base plate has two thermal pads, one for the GPU and one for those three little chips. So this entire structure is a heatsink for those. And the CPU just has this heat pipe here that runs to this lug, and that lug mates up to the upper half of the aluminum structure here, and that is definitely solid metal. And now I see where this thing's weight comes from, because this thing is heavy. Wow, this is like alien technology to me. I can't believe that's sufficient to cool the CPU and the GPU. Yeah, Apple definitely consulted with aliens. You heard it here first. And those thermal pads are still remarkably supple, though they are sweating their oil a little bit. Hopefully I have replacements that are thick enough, but if not, I think these are still going to be okay. At least temporarily. And how often do I get to say that? I'm actually going to peel these off before they get even more contaminated. There also appears to be a thermal pad underneath this shim, but that I can at least replace with thermal paste. Let's find out what's going on under there. And these are T10. Well, whatever that stuff is, it is fierce. It is not coming up. Maybe I should just leave it alone. It probably still conducts heat perfectly fine. At least fine enough for a GPU. Okay, let's try to get this plastic liner out of here. I think it comes out. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, that's stuck down some way. I really like to clean underneath of it. That's kind of bugging me. But I suppose what little bit of dust that's trapped under there is not hurting anything. But let's go ahead and bust the dust we can reach. Okay, that's better. Okay, now let's clean up this motherboard. But first I want to see if I can detach this heat pipe from the CPU. Looks like it clips on from the underside. Okay, that made some scary sounds, but it doesn't look like it damaged anything. Okay, that sound was just this plastic that's around the CPU. I guess it was stuck to the heatsink. And it's a good thing we did that because this thermal paste is as good as gone. That stuff is petrified. Okay, back to the original mission. Dust busting. Alright, that's better. Okay, now I'm going to clean this CPU up as best I can, but that plastic surrounding does not seem easily removable. I'm not even sure what its purpose is. It attaches to the chip via this foam. I really don't want to pull that off. I may just have to let that little bit of thermal paste under there bother me. But let's see how it goes. Okay, that's as good as that's getting, I guess. I'm still kind of annoyed. But at least the heatsink cleaned up really well. I also cleaned up the surface that mates to the aluminum housing, because it had some kind of thermal compound on it, and it was just as perished as the stuff on the CPU. Okay, let's get that thing back on. I'm going to use just the tiniest bit of thermal compound, because that is a little chip, and I don't want it going under that plastic. Okay, let's move on to the drives. It's kind of funny seeing a full-size 5¼ inch optical drive in there. It looks like just a regular drive that's been defaced. Well, let's get it out of there and see. Uh-oh, somebody's been in here. We are missing a screw. And that looks like a speaker right there. So I guess this thing does have internal sound. I was thinking external speakers were going to be our only option. Guess not. And somebody got the hard drive. That sucks. That means I'm going to have to figure out how to install macOS. I guess that's the reason why the power supply was disconnected. Well, I guess we'll have to get a hard drive in here. Let's get power off that drive. Wow, there is no way to grip that Molex connector. There we go. And apparently whoever removed the hard drive was not too keen on properly removing the Molex connector. They've just ripped it right off. So we'll have to get that fixed. And the optical drive is made by HL Data Storage. That's Hitachi/LG. A CD burner/DVD-ROM combo drive. That's a CD burner that can read but cannot burn DVDs. So this thing was in that intermediate period. Manufactured December 2001. Now, let's go ahead and bench test this thing, because once this machine is back together, this thing is not going to be easy to get to if it has a problem. Okay, let's give it some power. You know what's weird is there's no LED on that drive. I guess Apple didn't want rogue lights blinking around in there. Well, let's see if it opens. And it's stuck. Let's try that one more time. Yeah, ain't having it. It's most likely a perished belt. Well, it's a good thing we checked. Let's get this thing open. Now let's try to force that tray open. And there you can see that belt is out of round. See, it's lumpy. Let's go ahead and pull it off. Okay, the belt hunt isn't going super well. The belt that is the correct thickness is just slightly too big in diameter. I did find this belt which is the correct diameter, just slightly thinner, but sometimes that's okay for CD drives. So let's get that in there. Okay, that might work. Let's see what it does. Let's turn it on. Okay, well that's more than it was doing. Let's see if it opens. Yep. See if it closes. Alright, I think that'll work. Now, I want to make sure this thing will actually spin a CD, but first I've got some more cleanup to do. We've got some dust bunnies in here. Let's pull that disc tray out completely. Now let's bust that dust. Now let's clean up all that old grease. And replace it with new grease. Now let's give that a little workout. Okay, let's see how we're doing now. Like butter. Okay, now let's see if this thing will accept the disc. Now I want to actually watch it spin up. The problem is the spindle clamp is part of the metal housing, so we're gonna have to get tricky. Now I usually use magnets for this, but this particular spindle is mostly plastic, so that's not gonna work. The spindle clamp has a magnet on it that gets attracted to this metal piece in here, and that's what actually clamps it. So I guess I'll try using some painter's tape. Let's get the disc in there. See, if I try to turn it on without the clamp, the disc will just slip on the spindle. So let's try to tape it down. Now let's see what it does. And that looks like a spin up to me. I think this drive is good. Okay, now I need to figure out how on earth I'm going to test this power supply. And keeping with the alien technology theme, that power supply is pretty weird. It's actually split across two PCBs. I'm guessing this half is the high voltage side, since it has mains voltage running to it. I guess let's just pull those both. And that cable looks soldered on. Well, that's just great. So I guess this will just have to dangle around down here while I get the upper half out. There we go. Okay, this power supply easily passes visual inspection, but now I need to figure out how on earth I'm going to test it. This is a 14-pin ATX style connector, but I seriously doubt this is the 14-pin ATX standard, just based on the coloring of the wires. I have a suspicion that this blue wire is the power on signal. Okay, now let's make sure these things actually have a common ground. And no, they do not. I was thinking at least one of those wires in that connector was ground. I guess not. Well, that's nothing an alligator clamp can't fix. Okay, let's give this thing some power. Okay, it made sounds. Now we have to figure out how to get this thing to turn on. Let's just try shorting that blue wire to ground. Nope, that doesn't do it. Okay, I think this might be an always-on power supply. It actually is producing 12 volts, but it's only producing 12 volts. And actually, the 5-volt lead for the Molex connector runs to the motherboard, so the power supply does not generate the 5-volt rail. So this power supply is probably fine, but how could I trust a power supply without the vote of confidence of the sacrificial hard drive sounds? Well, let's try putting a light bulb on the 12-volt rail, see how it likes that. Okay, that works just fine. So I guess this power supply can handle some load. Yeah, it's probably fine. Okay, let's go ahead and remove that dust. Okay, now let's replace this missing Molex connector. Now, I don't have any of those crimp type Molex connectors on hand, so we're going to have to solder on a regular one, which means we're going to have to cut these. Now, let's get our heat shrink tubing on there. Now, let's get this mess soldered together. Okay, let's shrink our shrink tubing. Done and done. Okay, there's not much left in here, so let's get that fan out. These are yet more T15 screws. That fan was in there. Looks like it has a little gasket that it was stuck to. Interesting. And now I can start sweeping this thing out. Okay, let's see how that fan sounds. And it sounds perfectly fine. Actually, super quiet. I guess that's why Apple chose it. Okay, so all this thing needs is cleanup. Okay, well that's as clean as a bone white fan's gonna get. Now, as for the hard drive, I'm gonna put this 80 gig Seagate in there. Hopefully the system likes it. And I don't see a need to go any deeper into this thing, but I do want to get that contact point for the CPU heatsink cleaned up. It has some perished thermal compound that needs to go. Yeah, there we go. Now it's time to start getting this thing back together. Now, as for these thermal pads, I don't have any on hand that are thick enough. The ones I have are about half that thickness, and I hate doubling them up, so I've just gone ahead and cleaned these up. It just took a bit of distilled water to remove the dust, and I think they'll be fine. They still feel plenty thermally conductive. And of course, before we close this thing up, let's get some thermal paste on that heat coupling. And I gotta say, this thing comes apart a lot easier than it goes together. Okay, it's time to test this thing. Now, I'm not expecting much other than complaints. I'm not sure exactly what's on that hard drive, but I can guarantee it's nothing a PowerPC Mac would like. But let's just see if we can get it to complain at least. Let's send it some power. Okay, I hear the power supply. Now, let's hit the power button. And that's a good sign. And it looks like that thing's trying to work. Now I just have to get OS X installed. That is assuming this drive can read a AA or DVD-R. I'm not optimistic about that. Oh, and also, side rant, I can't believe how hard it is to find AA or DVDs in retail stores nowadays. I tried Best Buy, Target, Walmart, and found nothing of the sort. I had to get these from Amazon. Let's see if this drive will read it. Doesn't sound like it. And I guess that's a no. Well, guess I have to find a drive that will read it. Okay, I know for a fact that this drive will read it, though I'm not sure if the Mac will like this drive. I don't know how particular these things are about that. And I do have to deface this drive, which I'm not happy about, because I'm definitely not keeping this drive in this system. IDE DVD burners are kind of rare around here. Alright, let's get that face off. Luckily, it's pretty easy to remove these non-destructively. Okay, that drive is in. Let's try this again. There we go. Man, that screen is dirty. Okay, let's select English. Now that's interesting. I thought these machines were good up to 10.5.8. Okay, that's annoying. That means I have to burn another precious AA or DVD. And I sure wish it would tell me exactly what its problem was. It could be that it doesn't like that hard drive. Let's see, what can we do in here other than exit? Okay, that's just the installer version. Let's see if I can at least partition that drive. Maybe that's what it's irritated about. Let's try to delete that partition. Let's do non-case sensitive. Do it. Okay, I guess that did it. Seems legit. Well, let's reboot and try again. And nope, still hates it. Guess I need to find an older version of macOS. Okay, it turns out I had to read a little more. OS X 10.5 requires at least an 866 MHz CPU, so we're going to install Tiger instead. Alright, this is looking better. Let's continue. Of course I agree. Okay, why is it mad about that drive? Let's see. OS X cannot start up from this volume. But it doesn't give me any option to repartition it. Let's see if I can do it this way. Can I just get rid of this partition completely? Guess not. Let's try to erase the entire disk. Okay, does that make you any happier? Aha, there we go. Do it. Okay, we can skip this. I already did that when I burned it. Alright, looks like it's going. Alright, I think we're done. Let's restart. And we're booting from the hard drive. Well, I certainly feel welcome. guess it's gonna play music throughout. Okay. No, I don't already own a Mac. We are US based. We are on the local network. Actually, we're not on any network. I should probably just skip this. And I guess now it's going to wait for DHCP to time out. But now I'm curious if this would actually still work. I am tempted. Nah, let's just continue for now. Now they want all my info. Can I just skip this? No, you must. Jeez, they want everything. Okay, fine. How do you like that? Really? Hates my phone number. I swear it's real. Oh, it wants an area code. Do you ever stop asking questions? Oh, come on. Who will primarily use this computer? This is a large business. Lots of employees here. Yet somehow I'll be retired. Alright, finally. We're getting somewhere. Sure, let's be on West Coast time. That seems legit to me. Don't forget to register. Oh, don't you worry. I won't forget. Alright. At last. We are in. I don't like that being untitled, though. Needs to be the classic. Okay, so what do we do with a PowerPC Mac in 2023? I can't imagine many modern browsers run on this. Let's check out that old version of iTunes. Ooh, not without agreeing to the EULA. Uh-oh, what did I get myself into? More intrusive questions? Sure, that seems fine. Whatever you want, sweetheart. Finish. Okay, now this I remember. Aw, no internet. I forgot about the brushed steel iTunes GUI. It's too bad my camera hates this screen. Alright, let's get out of here. Okay, now we can finally see how much RAM this thing really has. A total of 512 megabytes. That should be enough for anyone. Alright, well this thing's ready. Ready to do some Mac stuff. As soon as I figure out what that is. Okay, I swapped the original drive back in. I just want to make double sure it works. So let's see. And yes, indeed it does. Got the icon right there. Let's actually go in there. And yep, working just fine. Alright, let's shut this thing down. First, let's get that disk out of there. Now, this machine has certainly earned its cleanup, starting with that filthy display. Got some LCD panel cleaner here. Alright, beneath all that dirt, that screen's actually in really good condition. Now let's just clean the rest of it. Yeah, that's cleaning up very nicely. Now let's hit the base. It doesn't need much. Yeah, this thing's in great shape. And a microfiber cloth should make short work of that display arm. Short work indeed. That thing's gleaming. Can't forget the most important part. Wow, what an absolute survivor. This thing's in almost brand new condition. Like, you would never guess it was e-waste. And all it needed was some cleanup in a hard drive? Yeah, these things were built different. That's for sure. Let's move on to the next system. And the next system is a very similar machine, although this one has a widescreen aspect ratio. It makes me think it must be newer, or maybe just a higher spec model. And this one's a little bit rough and tumble. I feel like this might have been a school computer or something. And that's because there appears to be numerous pencil or pen marks on the base of the machine. I'm not terribly optimistic about how well this thing is going to clean up, but we'll see. There also seems to be a bit of yellowing on the display bezel. It's considerably more yellow than the previous system, and I don't really understand why, because the white plastic is actually behind this clear plastic. I imagine that should have protected it from oxidation. I don't know, maybe that yellowing's on the outer plastic. If so, that means we can do something about it. And despite this machine's seemingly sordid past, that display arm is still absolutely perfect. Still as smooth as ever. Or at least as smooth as the previous system. And we have a label from a repair shop back here that's dated November 25th, 2009. And I noticed I never checked the box that says repair complete, so this thing could possibly still have whatever issue it was in for. It also has whatever this thing is on here. I'm having a hard time picturing what that's for. I know this thing wouldn't have included any kind of stylus, unless it was being used with a drawing tablet. And this machine has all the same ports as the previous system, just in a different arrangement, with the one exception being that line in port, or what I assume is a line in port. So maybe this was just a higher spec model. A line in port is very helpful for audio work. And some thoughtless individual did a 90-degree rotation on the base plate. That bothers me more than it should. And yeah, this machine is definitely a higher trim version of the first system, sporting a 1 GHz CPU, and this one has 80 hard drives. That must be why it's so much heavier than the first one. Well, let's see what this one has for us. And this one has the airport card. Very nice. Though no RAM expansion. So I've actually never seen one of these in person before. It sure looks like just a modified version of a PCMCIA card. Let's try to get it out of there. Yeah, nope, that is indeed very different. Let's disconnect that antenna. Well, we seem to have some kind of fluid on here. At least there was at one time. I don't know what. I don't see any other signs of liquid damage. We might be okay. Yeah, not much to see back there. And this thing has a copyright date of 2003. I don't like the way this metallic foam is deteriorating and getting everywhere. Is this stuff conductive? And yes, it sure is. That's not good. I'm gonna have to clean that off. Okay, let's enter the second circle. Okay, why is this thing harder to take apart than the previous one? There we go. Well, I guess these things just do nothing except hoover up dust all their lives. This one's even dustier than the previous system. The previous one also didn't have this shielding down here. Yeah, I see lots of differences. Let's get this base plate disconnected. Okay, that display connector is very different compared to the last system, and this one is quite a bit more enigmatic. I imagine it has to pull up, because that's the only direction it can really move, but it seems like it's glued down or something. I really hate putting so much pressure on these connectors. Okay, yeah, it actually is disconnected, but it's being held on with some kind of shmoo. Now, why on earth would they glue it down? Why couldn't they make that plastic just clip onto something? Yeah, that seems kind of lazy. Yeah, this one has to be an earlier revision or something. It seems like the design of the previous system was a lot more clever. For example, this machine uses 2 IDE cables, whereas the other one just used a single cable. This one doesn't have that fixed in place connector for connecting the speaker and fan and whatnot. Instead, it has this separate cable. And let's not forget that super annoying display cable. And that is one funny pattern on that IDE cable. It has an outline of all the board components in that area. That's actually kind of cool. It almost looks burned, but I'm pretty sure it's just very fine dust. And the optical drive looks fancy. It has its own internal cooling fan. A lot of earlier burners had that. And this CPU heat pipe has 2 contact points. I guess that 1 GHz chip needs a little extra. Now let's check out that RAM. Man, that is dusty. I'm gonna start calling these desk Roombas. And that's a stick of DDR. The previous system had PC-133, so I guess this machine is a later revision, which makes me wonder why they seemingly took so many steps backwards. And that's the original 256 meg stick, made by Micron. Well, at least the backside is clean. Doesn't look like we've had any trouble out of that battery. Yeah, it's also a lithium cell. Let's get it out of there. And this one is super dead. It has absolutely nothing. That could be the deadest battery we've had on this channel yet. Okay, let's get this motherboard out of here. Okay, this motherboard is really stuck in there. And I definitely got all the screws. And it looks like there's a chip on the other side of the board there. It's probably stuck on its thermal pad. So maybe if I just push it from the back. There we go. And yep, that's exactly what it is. And that pad is definitely in worse condition than the first system, but it's not altogether completely dead. It's still supple, though I see it's been leaking its oil everywhere. I don't think I'm going to be able to run this one. I might just have to double up on my thin thermal pads. And here's the other side of the board. And this one has an NVIDIA GeForce 4 GPU, so yeah, quite a bit nicer. And I did unnecessarily remove this clip for the airport card. I thought those screws are holding the motherboard down. And there's that other thermal pad. That one's stuck to the board. It doesn't look like there's anything under it though, so I guess it must be for the chip on the other side. Let's peel that off. Yeah, that's for something on the other side. And that would be this audio amplifier chip, a TriPath TA2024. I suppose that thing gets pretty toasty. Okay, let's get this board dedustified. Okay, let's get that CPU heatsink off. And that is a somewhat fresh and somewhat messy thermal paste job. I think somebody's been in here before. I wonder if that repair shop did that. Let's clean that up as best we can. Yeah, there's thermal paste up under that plastic. I don't know why that bothers me so much. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, I'm not even sure if that's any better. That plastic is so annoying. I'm tempted to just pull it off, but I have a feeling it's the only thing keeping those capacitors from shorting out against the heatsink. Yeah, I don't love this CPU design. Well, at least the heatsink cleaned up better, despite being a little stained. Let's get this back together. There we go. And of course, let's clean the faceplate out. I'm not even worrying about that thermal pad right now. Okay, I think I have the technique now for removing this conductive death foam. If you pick at one end of it, you can get the adhesive to come up. You can grab onto it. And it seems pretty good about staying in one piece, apart from all the foam flaking off. And then some IPA on a toothbrush gets rid of the remainder. It does take quite a bit of scrubbing though. It doesn't get all of it, but it's close enough. I'll need to find something to replace that foam in the future. And we might be in luck with this one. I don't think anybody's messed with those drives. I can't quite tell if there's a hard drive in there yet, but the presence of that IDE cable seems to suggest so. So let's pull them out of there. Let's get rid of this cable. And yep, that's a hard drive. Let's get these Molex connectors off. As well as possibly the world's shortest IDE cable. I do like how this system has this rotational damper on the optical drive door. Gives it a little soft close effect. The previous system didn't have that. It's either that or it was broken. But that is an especially nice touch. And I am shocked at the amount of dust that these things collect. This is crazy. And for some reason this hard drive is covered in some kind of wrap, and I'm not entirely sure why. Is it sound deadening? Seems like it's just paper or something. And that's an 80 gig Seagate Barracuda, no doubt original to the system. And that date code seems to suggest it was made in 2003. It does track. And that optical drive is a DVD burner, made for Apple by Pioneer, manufactured February 2003. And like everything else in the system, insanely dusty. Now some of this dust does not come off at all. I wonder if this thing was in a burning building or something. Now let's bench test that drive. Let's give it some power. And see if it opens. And yep. Well, kinda. It definitely didn't seem happy about it. Let's try again. Maybe you're just a little bit cranky. Yeah, that thing's not having a good time. But every once in a while it does. Okay, yeah, that's not me. It's doing that on its own. Okay, I guess we're going into this drive too. And this is funny. Check out this capacitor bodge. Those are connected to the motor that opens the disk tray. It gets it done, I guess. I also found this little bitty spring rattling around in there, so that's not great. I have no idea where that goes. And it's interesting that this thing has a metal plate over the entire disk mechanism. I wonder why that is. Maybe they're trying to cut down on noise or something. And that is one beast of a laser lens assembly. That thing looks like a weapon. Okay, let's get that disk tray out of there so we can change that belt. But you know what? That belt actually looks fine. Doesn't seem to be out of round at all. And it also has plenty of traction. So there must be something else wrong with this thing. Possibly related to that little spring. And I still can't find the origins of that tiny spring. I'll go a little deeper, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. And it's still not obvious. Let's pull this PCB off. And still no signs of it. Yeah, trying to figure out these types of things is usually futile, unless it's really obvious where the spring goes. So I guess let's just clean and grease the thing and hope for the best. Okay, that's working better. Okay, let's see how things are going now. Wow, that laser is bright. Did you see that? It probably doesn't come through very well in the camera. Yeah, that thing is a cannon. Don't look directly into that. Okay, I'm through being distracted by shiny things. It seems like the disk tray is working perfectly fine. It's not getting stuck like it was. So that spring probably didn't come out of the disk tray mechanism. I did notice that the support bars for the laser lens assembly are sitting on springs, but they all seem to be present. Okay, I officially give up on trying to figure out where that spring goes. Okay, let's see if this thing will spin a disk. And luckily this drive's spindle clamp just comes right out, so we can just stick that on there. Now let's give it some power. Oh, I think it likes it. Maybe. Wow, you can actually see the laser shining through the disc. Seems like that thing's having a bad time. Yeah, seems like this drive can't quite make sense of that disc. I think it's probably no good. Well, I guess I have to find a CD drive that's appley enough to work in there. And yep, it gave up. Oh well. Well, it seems that IDE DVD burners are kind of a scarce commodity around here. So this machine's probably just going to have to sit with a broken optical drive for a while, at least until I uncover a suitable replacement. I don't want to put anything less than a burner in here, because I prefer to keep systems like these as close to matching their original specs as possible. So I'll just have to be on the lookout for one of those. Okay, now let's extract that power supply. And this time I'm starting with the high voltage side. Okay, same deal as before. We're testing the 12-volt rail, because that's all we have. Let's see what it does. Okay, we're looking good. No smoke, no strange noises. It is kind of weird without the sacrificial hard drives, though. This Mac stuff has me a little on edge. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. That power supply is doing fine. We're not getting any concerningly large amounts of heat. We are good. Let's get that thing cleaned up. You know, I just love paintbrushes for removing dust. So effective. Alright, dedustification is complete. Okay, now, let's get out that fan, man. Okay, that one wasn't as stuck as the previous system. But it is considerably filthier than the fan in the last system. Let's see if it sounds halfway decent. And yep, sounds great. So all it needs is a cleaning. Yeah, I don't know what it is with the dust in this system. It has these like molecular-sized particles, I guess. Even solvents aren't getting it off. But that's as clean as this fan is getting, and that's as clean as it needs to be. Okay, let's clean this thing out as best we can. Well, I've never had a system be so resistant to my cleaning methods. I don't like it. Those little vent holes have that molecular dust all embedded in them, and it's nearly impossible to clean out. If ever there was a system to benefit greatly from air filters, this would definitely be the one. Alright, let's get this thing back together. Okay, I'm going to try to stick this wrap back on the hard drive. It seems plenty sticky still, though I'm still not sure what it does. It's got to be something to do with sound reduction. But I figure Apple put it there for a reason. Okay, that's stuck back on pretty well. And as for those thermal pads, I checked the interaction of the thickest pads I have on hand, and it looks like they'll work. So that GPU and that audio amp are getting fresh pads after all. Now, as for that silly display connector, I just put some fresh double stick tape on it. That's really the only solution I can think of for that. I think they intended the original adhesive to be stretchy enough to pull up and disengage the connector, but 20 years later, that doesn't work too well. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I guess that'll do. Seems to be holding on fine. And I couldn't get that copper tape to stick back on that shielding at all. So that's just gonna have to do. Concession seems to be the name of the game with repairing these systems, but I'll definitely be better prepared next time. Let's get some thermal paste on those hot spots. Now let's get that airport card back in there. And let's close it up. Okay, well, it's time to see what it does. I gotta admit, I'm not optimistic about this one. Let's give it some power. Okay, nothing terrible has happened yet. Let's see if it boots. Well, we got a chime. And we got a display. It is awfully dim though, but it is booting. That hard drive's kind of noisy, just the way I like it. Seems like it may be struggling to boot. The pinwheel is stopped and the hard drive's just thrashing away. I'm gonna give it a few minutes and see if it figures its life out. Okay, yeah, we're not getting anywhere. The hard drive itself sounds fine. I'm fairly certain this is just a software issue. Let's see if we can get this thing in recovery mode. Oh, there it goes. So all I did was turn it off and back on again. The classic IT solution. Okay, there's a bunch of accounts on here. This was definitely a family computer. Let's see, and they probably all have passwords. That one does. So does that one. So does that one. And so does that one. I guess we have some password resetting to do. Okay, I booted up to single user mode. Got that password reset. That process seems to be the same as any other BSD-based OS. So let's reboot and see if we can get in. Alright, this was the one. Aha! We are in. And we're complaining about the PRAM battery. That's no surprise. Wow, this thing has a lot of sensitive info on it. Uh-oh. What is this? You need to restart your computer. Hold down the power button for several seconds. This might be because I don't have the PRAM battery in there. This thing seems quite agitated about that. So I guess I'm gonna have to pull the one out of the first system. That's really the best option I have right now. Okay, I got that PRAM battery switched out. It seems much happier now. I also cleaned up that desktop so I don't have to spend 6 hours blurring stuff. Let's see what this thing has on here. Bejeweled 2. And the Mac version of AOL. I have never ever even seen AOL on a Mac. Let's check that out. Oh, we got a question mark. That's not good. An Internet Explorer? Oh, what is going on? We got some artifacting going on. And we crashed. That's interesting. I think we figured out why it was at the repair shop. It might just need to be reinstalled. Okay, well, let's reboot it. Though that artifacting kind of makes me think something's going on with the video memory. And Mac OS X quit unexpectedly. Let's see if we can get it to crash again. Okay, it's hanging in there this time. But why on earth would someone put Internet Explorer on a Mac? Let's try to open that up. Oh, it's really on there. IE 5.2. This is kind of gross. Let's see if they were actually using it. Yeah, there's some bookmarks on there. Why? Why would you use IE on a Mac? Maybe they were doing some web development and had to check IE functionality or something. IE was the absolute bane of every web dev's existence back then. Maybe they were just a glutton for punishment. Let's see, what else do we have? Adobe Photoshop 7.0. Let's see if it's licensed. Yeah, it sure is. Okay, well that's cool. I have no idea how to use Photoshop. And an old version of iMovie. And the Mac version of Microsoft Word. Let's open that up. And it is licensed. Okay, let's do a Word document. This is very different on a Mac. Alright, let's get out of there. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff on here. Windows Media Player. It seems like these people really just wanted a PC. I didn't even realize there was a Windows Media Player for Mac. This thing's getting weird. And I noticed it hasn't crashed. I wonder if it's just having a temporary conniption. Okay, let's try to figure out the last time this system was used. I'm gonna guess 2009 based on that repair sticker. And since this is good old Unix, we should be able to just grep through the logs. Let's open up Terminal. Oh, we got that artifact thing again. I guess we're gonna crash. Now, what is up with that? That's gotta be video memory. That is one unhappy Mac. Okay, well, let's reboot it again. And it immediately crashed this time. Yeah, this is making me think it's heat related. Maybe there's a broken BGA solder ball under one of those VRAM chips. The system doesn't feel hot at all. I'm gonna just give it a few minutes to rest and see if it's doing any better. Okay, I got it to survive long enough to get to terminal. And some of these logs get all the way up to 2016. Around late March 2016 is the latest I'm seeing. And that is of course dependent on the date and time being set correctly. But we would definitely be seeing weirder timestamps if there was a problem with the PRAM battery in the past. Like for instance this one from 1969. That was the date the system was showing when the PRAM battery was out. So yeah, it's entirely plausible that somebody was still using this thing all the way up to 2016. And that is too funny. And I just confirmed that airport card does work. It connected to my Wi-Fi just fine. So this thing is online. And no, I'm not using Internet Explorer. Wow, that hard drive is just going. This thing got some internet and became incredibly happy. Okay, I'm gonna guess that livepage.apple.com is probably no longer functional, and especially on HTTP. Vast majority of the internet now operates on HTTPS. There's no way this thing's gonna support modern SSL. Let's see if Google still runs a regular HTTP site. Well, can't reach that either. I wonder if the internet is really working. See if we can get back in the terminal without Spotlight crashing us. Alright, let's see. Do we even get DNS? We do get DNS, so internet's definitely working. Let's see if we have the curl command on here. And we do. Can we curl google.com? Well, we probably could if I didn't accidentally hit the enter key. Okay, yeah, so internet's definitely working. Might be some weird proxy settings inside Safari. Let's try Firefox. Wow, that is taking its time to load. Oh, here it comes. Let's see what version of Firefox this is. Firefox 3.6.28. And that's interesting, I get the security warning. Let's see if it'll actually take me to that page. I understand the risks. Ah, come on. Confirm security exception. Yeah, no way. Can't handle that cipher. And we crashed, with no video corruption this time. Oh well, I guess it's time to give this thing a break. Goodbye. You know what? Let's go ahead and reinstall macOS on this thing, and see if it behaves any differently. I am going to have to swap out that DVD drive though, because the original one is most definitely dead. Alright, the working drive is in. Let's try to get this thing reinstalled. Now I think he holds C to boot from DVD. And sure sounds like it's booting from DVD. Ooh, and we immediately crash. Okay, well if this thing can't even load the installer, then its problem is definitely hardware. I'm actually just going to do that one more time to see if it gets through maybe. Nope, crashed in the exact same spot. Yeah, this thing has deeper issues. Well, just out of curiosity, I put the macOS 10.4 disk in there, and it booted up fine. So I guess we'll try to reinstall that. And this again. And yeah, I figured it would complain about the existing macOS install, since the drive has 10.4.11 installed. That's newer than what's on this disk. So how about we just tell it to forget about that. Erase and install. That should do it. This hard drive needs to be wiped anyway. And keep in mind that this is not the correct way to wipe a drive. There's a whole process for that, but I'll take care of that later. Alright, let's go. And it looks like we made it through. Let's restart. Haha! The graphics are too much for it. Okay, well I guess that settles it. This thing definitely has hardware problems. Well, even though this thing is sick, we can't just let it be filthy like this. I'm gonna start with just Windex on a paper towel, but I'm about 90% sure we're gonna have to break out the magic eraser. Those pen marks do not look promising. Yeah, gentle isn't doing it. It's magic eraser time. Okay, well, not perfect, but definitely better. Now let's turn our attention to that display. You know, it's too bad this LCD is a little bit damaged, because it's actually in really good physical condition on the outside. I don't see a single scratch on it. Okay, let's see if anything can be done about this yellowing. I'm not sure if anything can be done. I brought over the first system just for comparison. See, the first system is absolutely perfect. These are actually different bezel designs. This one has the white plastic flush with the clear plastic, whereas this one has the white plastic beneath the clear plastic. Let's start with just trying to clean it. See if that's just dirt or not. Well, it at least removed the dirt, but it didn't make any difference to the shade of the plastic. I guess that's just how it is. Well, that's too bad. I've got to do some major digging on the hardware diagnostics for these things. It's not as though you can just swap out the video card. If any seasoned Mac technicians have any ideas, please let me know. It has been a long time, but I'm definitely not against BGA soldering. And what's weird is the crashes seem totally random. They seem independent of both system heat and system load, just to make it extra confusing. And I think that discoloration on the display bezel is caused by heat from the inverter, because it's heaviest on that side, and I'm pretty sure that's where the inverter lives. But at least we got to do some OS X archaeology. That was fun. Let's see if that one makes it through the shot. It seems to crash completely at random. Like, I was able to use it for about 30 minutes last night with no trouble whatsoever. I was able to give it a proper shutdown and everything. But I am definitely going to be setting up one of these for use. These things need to be seen. I was hoping it would be that one, but I guess not. It may make an appearance in a future video. But that's all for this one. Thanks for watching.